The wedding was a riot of colors, a kaleidoscope of silk saris and flashing lights. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. It was a celebration that seemed to have a life of its own, pulsating with energy and joy. Anuj stood awkwardly by the buffet table, nursing a glass of lemonade and feeling utterly out of place. He had always been more comfortable in smaller gatherings, and this grand affair was overwhelming. The sea of unfamiliar faces made him feel even more isolated. He didn't know the bride or groom very well. In fact, he'd only met them once before, at a mutual friend's party. He was there as a friend of a friend, a last-minute addition to the guest list. He was there as a friend of a friend. The invitation had come unexpectedly, and he had almost declined, but something had nudged him to attend, a feeling he couldn't quite explain. Then he saw her, Sonal. She stood out in the crowd not just because of her beauty, but because of the way she carried herself. There was a grace and confidence about her that was hard to ignore. She was laughing, her eyes sparkling as she chatted with a group of women. Her laughter was like a melody drawing people in. Anuj found himself captivated by her, unable to look away. Anuj couldn't help but be drawn to her infectious energy. It was as if she was the sun, and everyone around her was basking in her warmth. He felt an inexplicable urge to be near her, to share in her joy. He found himself inching closer, wanting to be a part of her joy. He didn't know what he would say or do, but he knew he had to try. The pull was too strong to resist. As fate would have it, they bumped into each other, literally. In the crowded room, their paths crossed, and Anuj's lemonade sloshed over Sonal's sari, staining the delicate fabric a pale yellow. Mortified, Anuj stammered apologies. He felt his face flush with embarrassment, and he wished he could disappear. "Oh no, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to," he began, his voice shaky.
"Oh no, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to..."
It's okay, really. It's just lemonade. Sonal's voice was calm and reassuring, and her smile was genuine. She didn't seem upset at all, which only made Anuj feel more at ease.
Sonal, to his surprise, just laughed, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "It's just lemonade," she repeated, her laughter like a balm to his frazzled nerves. Anuj couldn't help but smile back, feeling a connection spark between them. That was the start of their unlikely friendship. They spent the rest of the evening talking, discovering shared dreams and a love for old Hindi film songs. They found common ground in their love for poetry, travel, and the simple joys of life. They spent the rest of the evening talking, discovering shared dreams and a love for old Hindi film songs. They laughed about their favorite movie scenes, debated the best singers, and shared stories from their childhoods. It was as if they had known each other for years. When the first drops of rain began to fall, signaling the arrival of the monsoon, they were still lost in conversation. The rain didn't bother them, it only added to the magic of the evening. They stood under a canopy, watching the rain together, feeling a sense of connection that neither had expected.
It's magical, isn't it? The first rain.
Anuj nodded, captivated by the way the raindrops seemed to dance in her eyes.
"It feels like a new beginning.
An impulse seized him.
Let's make a pact. Let's meet here every year on the day of the first rain, no matter what."
Sonal looked at him, her head cocked to one side.
Every year?
Every year.
Anuj confirmed, his heart pounding with a strange mix of excitement and trepidation.
It's a promise then.
She said, extending her hand. Anuj took her hand in his, the warmth of her touch sending a jolt through him.
A promise.
He echoed, the word feeling sacred and profound. And so began their yearly ritual. Every year, without fail, Anuj and Sonal would find their way back to the park where they'd first met. They'd sit on the same old bench beneath the shelter of a sprawling banyan tree and talk for hours. They shared stories of their lives, their triumphs, their heartbreaks, their dreams for the future. Anuj, who was usually shy and reserved, found himself opening up to Sonal in a way he never had with anyone else. Sonal, with her infectious laughter and her ability to find joy in the smallest of things, brought a vibrancy to Anuj's life that he hadn't known he was missing. Over the years, their friendship deepened into something more profound. It was a bond built on shared laughter, whispered secrets, and a mutual understanding that transcended words. They celebrated each other's successes and offered comfort during times of sorrow. Anuj realized he looked forward to their annual meeting more than anything else. Sonal had become his anchor, his confidant, the one person he could always count on. He found himself falling for her, his heart aching with a love he was too afraid to confess. Section 5, the empty bench. Then came the year when the rain fell, but Sonal didn't.
Anuj waited on their bench, his heart growing heavier with each passing hour.
He tried her number, but it went straight to voicemail. Days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Sonal.
Anuj was consumed by worry. Had something happened to her? Where could she be?
The thought of Sonal, his vibrant, full of life Sonal, being lost to him was unbearable.
He knew he had to find her.
Section 6. A search begins. Anuj's search for Sonal started with their mutual friends, but no one had heard from her either. He scoured social media, his hope dwindling with each dead end.
He felt a sense of despair he had never known before.
Then, just as he was about to give up hope, he stumbled upon a flyer. It was for a music concert featuring a rising star, Sonal.
His heart leaped. It was her. He knew it.
The concert was in a different city, but Anuj didn't hesitate. He booked the next train ticket, his heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation.
He was going to find Sonal.
The concert hall was packed. Anuj stood at the back, his gaze fixed on the stage. When Sonal finally appeared, bathed in the spotlight, Anuj's breath caught in his throat. She was even more radiant than he remembered, her voice soaring through the hall like a songbird. As she sang, Anuj could see the same passion, the same joy that had drawn him to her all those years ago. After the concert, Anuj waited for the crowd to disperse. The echoes of applause still lingered in the air, a testament to the night's success. He needed to see Sonal, to talk to her, to tell her everything he'd been holding back for years. His heart pounded with anticipation and fear, a mix of emotions that had been building up for far too long. When he finally found her backstage, she was surrounded by well-wishers. Her laughter filled the room, a sound that had always brought him comfort, yet now it only heightened his anxiety. He stood back, watching her, his heart overflowing with a love that could no longer be contained. Memories of their time together flashed before his eyes, each one a reminder of why he needed to do this. As she turned and their eyes met across the room, the world around them seemed to fade away. It was as if they were the only two people in existence, their connection palpable and undeniable. He pushed through the crowd, his gaze never leaving hers. Each step felt like a mile, but he was determined to reach her, to finally say what he had been holding back.
Sonal! His voice trembled, carrying the weight of his emotions.
He breathed, his voice husky with emotion. The words he had rehearsed 1,000 times seemed to vanish, leaving him vulnerable and exposed.
Anuj, what are you doing here? Her eyes widened in surprise, a mix of confusion and curiosity in her gaze.
I had to see you. His voice was earnest, filled with a desperation that he could no longer hide. I was so worried when you didn't show up. Each minute felt like an eternity, and I couldn't stand the thought of not being here with you. I realized I couldn't bear the thought of losing you. The words hung in the air, a confession that had been years in the making, now finally spoken under the stage lights.
Sonal's eyes softened, reflecting the depth of emotion she had kept hidden for so long. The years had been kind to her, but the weight of unspoken words had always lingered in her heart.
Anuj, she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope.
She began to speak, but he stopped her, his thumb gently stroking her hand, a silent gesture that spoke volumes. It was as if he was telling her that words were unnecessary, that he understood everything she wanted to say.
I love you, Sonal. I have for years. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the intensity of his feelings.
Tears welled up in Sonal's eyes, not just from the confession, but from the realization of how much time they had lost.
Oh, Anuj, I love you too. I always have. Her voice was filled with a mixture of relief and regret.
He pulled her close, holding her tight as if he would never let go. The years of unspoken feelings melted away as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated love, a love that had stood the test of time and distance.
I'm so sorry I didn't come. My music career took off, and it all happened so fast. I should have called. Her voice was filled with remorse, the weight of her choices evident in her tone.
Anuj silenced her with a kiss that spoke of forgiveness and a future yet to be written.
It doesn't matter. All that matters is that we're here now, together. His words were a balm to her soul, a promise of new beginnings.
He looked deep into her eyes, his heart overflowing with emotions he could barely contain. It was as if he was seeing her for the first time, and yet he had known her forever.
Will you renew our promise? Not just to meet, but to face life's journey together as one. His voice was filled with hope and determination.
Sonal's lips curved into a radiant smile, a smile that spoke of acceptance and a future filled with endless possibilities.
It's a promise. Her voice was steady, filled with a newfound confidence and love.
She whispered, sealing their vow with a kiss. It was a kiss that promised a lifetime of love, a kiss that marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The first rain continued to fall outside, washing away the old and ushering in the new. Anuj and Sonal stood there, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held, as long as they had each other. The promise they had made all those years ago on that rainy wedding day had not only stood the test of time, but had blossomed into a love that was both enduring and true. It was a testament to the power of promises, the enduring nature of love, and the magical way fate had of bringing two souls together under the most unexpected circumstances.